Morning, all.
How's everybody?
Yeah.
Hello, everybody.
Oh man, Francois, where are you at geographically?
I'm in Split, Croatia. So this is
Oh,
in
cool.
the south of Europe, near to Italy.
Got it.
Nice.
So Francois Xavier Pellay, did I get that right?
Wow. Yes.
Wow,
I'm not
man.
used to hear the whole name.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Usually
So-
people call me Francois because it's just too long. Yeah.
It's just too long. Well, listen, I'm not going to argue with making names shorter. Trust me. So Francois it is. So cool, man. Well, yeah, thanks for coming. And Dave's spoken highly of
Yeah, he's
this
been raving about
conversation,
you.
so I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, I'm excited to make the connection. Our podcast here, Matt and Tom, have been doing this for a really long time, and they've just talked about so many cool things. And I was like, oh, I need to get you on the podcast because there's this thing that starts to happen in podcasting where you start to go down different rabbit holes of obsessions. And you've been one of my longer time obsessions of the things that you've been working on, and you and I have been connected now for a couple of years. And so I was just super excited to make this connection because I know for sure it's going to send Matt and Tom down a whole new rabbit hole that they haven't been down before. So I'm excited to hear how they respond to this.
When we before the show, I like pinged you on LinkedIn, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is why Dave referred him over.
Yeah.
Like I immediately was like, yeah, we're gonna get into some stuff.
Yeah. So yeah, with that, what tell us a little bit about how you got to where you're at today. Like just give us your backstory, I guess it is.
Sure. I mean, thank you to have me and to discuss, because I'm actually very interested to talk to people who also are not necessarily expert in the field. And so that, I really enjoy what I do, and I really, really enjoy discussing about it. So this is a pleasure for me to talk with you guys today. So I am a scientist, expert in the biology of aging. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And that's my main area of expertise, my passion. Some would say my obsession. I've been passionate by these topics for much longer than I should admit. And that's just my thing. So I've been mostly a scientist for most of my life, trying to understand aging through different angles, through different type of science. I would say mostly biology, but biology is very broad. And the past 5 years, I've also been an entrepreneur, trying to turn my discoveries into product, into solutions. And because the goal for me is finding solutions, right? So it's not just theoretical. It's not just about understanding aging. It's really about trying to find ways to either slow it down, stop it, or reverse it completely. So this is what we're going to talk about, I guess.
So just to kind of set a framework, we've had a couple sort of recursive themes in this category before. You're not the first longevity person we've talked to. Your angle seems to be unique for sure, and I can't wait to get into that. But if we look high enough, a lot of the thread here, there's a couple of them, right? One is this is all hocus pocus. We've had this conversation for 30 years, 40 years that this is the last generation to die. Like that I think there was a book about that in the 80s. Like this is, you know what I'm saying? Like this is not new here. And then the other thing was it's all hocus pocus because look, we'd have people living to 120 right now if this was the thing and whatever, so, and then I guess the third thing is that aging isn't really considered curable up until this point, right? Like, so I guess there's sort of three threads that get woven into all of these stories. And I thought maybe it'd be cool to start there and just see how those compare.
Yeah, no, those are very good questions. And yeah, it's true. I mean, people have been trying to find a way to live forever for a very long time, for centuries,
Forever.
I guess.
Forever, yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
The philosopher's stone.
Nobody likes the idea of getting old. Nobody likes the idea of dying. I guess that's almost, accepted everywhere. So there was, and there still is, quite a lot of nonsense all over that. So this, what you're bringing is definitely a problem, an issue. And I would say longevity as it is now is still a mix between this that still exists and the actual science, which we will discuss. So the huge difference between now and 20 years ago, or 30 years ago, 40 years ago, is that there's been like really big advance in terms of science and biology about this specific topic. So our understanding of aging has progressed dramatically compared to when I started to be interested in 30 years ago. And so that's a fact. There's just
that's a quantifiable fact. That's not just hubris
absolutely.
of our
Yeah. There's it's basically, and that's true for many other realm. But a good analogy will be AI, right? You've been hearing about AI for as long as you've lived, probably. It's just there were moments where it was more popular and moments where it was less. But there's been research on AI. The concept of AI is very old. The concept of AI is almost as old as computers themselves. Right?
In fact, it is, yeah.
Like it's the same thing, I would say, in some ways comparable, except that we reach now a moment where AI is a reality and we are using it now. And it's, a good time to be alive, at least for that. And I enjoy it very much.
I'm with you. We're all laughing for the same reason.
We're surprised we took 6 whole minutes to get to AI.
Yeah, good point. But so basically for longevity, it's a little bit like that. We are. It's a bit. I wouldn't say more complex, but to some extent, biology is a very complex science, right?
Sure.
So the knowledge has been accumulating, and the goal and the mindset has changed a lot. So for a long time, also the reason why there was not so much science on aging is because it was not that interesting. People were focused on disease mostly. So the knowledge on cancer, for example, has evolved a lot as well. And they were focused on other area of biology, but aging itself was considered secondary. It's like, it's a byproduct of life, which it is to some extent, right? So
I love that you just said that, because it's such if you just looked at yourself from an outside perspective and heard that one statement, it's like, well, it's sort of a byproduct of like, no, it's actually the byproduct of living for most people, right? Like, I mean, it's
absolutely. Yeah. So that's one thing. The science has evolved a lot and is evolving really quickly. Another aspect is that industry and investment has increased massively over the past, I would say, 10, 15 years, which also is a big stimulation for science itself. But there was a period of just science growing, and then I think the first one was actually Google, who put $1 billion into Calico. It was the first really big investment for something that was not cancer, that was not disease, that was really just aging and longevity. They just started it. And well, there might have been smaller one before, but like one big one, I would say. And then since then, more and more of that is happening. So you can see, and that's why I make the parallel with AI. You can see that more money is injected in it. And so the more close we get to something real in terms of results and things like that.
So, I mean, I guess that's true with everything, right? Once commercialization becomes attractive, progress starts to hasten quite a bit.
It's been insane lately.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess, I and Francois, I build AI since, I'm in a tech company. I've owned one for a lot of years. And most of our clients come to us when a new thing comes out. They're like, hey, how do you mess with this? And AI was no different. So we've been building it as long as we could have. When we had access, we started playing with it. And I think that, yeah, it's cool that it's advancing, but with that advancement and especially the fever, I mean, I think the stat I keep seeing is 40% of VC money deployed in 2024 was to AI.
Yeah, and that's a problem for us, actually.
Yeah, it's a problem. Well, it's a problem for everyone because the headline of 2025 is 95% of those initiatives are failing objectively.
Yeah.
So like, that's not a good mix of numbers, right? That, and so I think that puts a stink on a lot of this stuff. And I think the pendulum, as it were, swings back now the other way. And they're like, all right, fuck this AI thing. It's too chaotic. It's too volatile. Like, and now you're seeing people pull back on things. And I'm like, I think that's just, I personally, I just think this is the beginning of it. I think next year we're going to see it go screeching halt in some areas. Yeah, there'll be some things that'll keep going, but I don't think this fervor is going to keep up, which I think is going to mess with progress. Right. So we kind of go,
I would argue that when we're talking about people living forever or living longer and healthier, I don't think that's ever gone out of fashion. So I have a feeling that even if there's failure, and even though we're shifting our focus, away from that a little bit with the AI, it's going to come full circle.
I mean, we've got the state of Florida trying to get rid of vaccine mandates for kids in school.
Look,
I'm like, come on,
we can shit on the states all day, man.
No, I know. I'm just saying, like, that's the stuff I'm talking about, right? That pendulum.
Look, let's remove the fucking warning labels. Let's just do it, man.
Yeah.
I was the good news out of all of this is that the infrastructure for AI, which helps with protein folding research and all of those sorts of things,
is already out.
The data centers are finally being built big enough that the biological research can continue. And I think that the foundation, all the crazy AI app stuff of everyone who is going to make the next big Slack or the next big Discord or, all that stuff's going to go away. But all the infrastructure stuff for the real science and why we have, this conversation going on is going to keep accelerating. So I'm excited for that side of it.
Well, and Francois, a lot of what you're doing could be done in the background. It doesn't look like you're doing like Google IPO raise type caliber stuff right now. So you could just be like, great, thanks for building all these cool toys. I'm just going to make cool shit now.
I mean, partly. Biology is also complex and expensive, but you always find ways to make it cheaper. Just to go back to what you guys just said, I mean, there's definitely like this idea of fashion and the fact that, like Tom said, that there are things that just will be a concern for as long as we don't solve it. There's no question there. Beside companies and beside investment, another thing that is interesting, and I'm not talking about US, I'm talking about other countries in the world. You have entire countries, usually small, powerful, rich countries, who decide to take the problem in their own hands. Because you got Singapore was the first one. And Singapore is a small country with a high level of control. And they decided that, I mean, first off, like every other country, they realized that people getting old and sick is a high cost to society and to a country itself, right? So they say, okay, we will solve it ourselves. So they inject massive amount of money. They basically take over. And you see now the same thing in the Middle East. Saudi Arabia had this program also, 1 billion per year invested in this. You see that also in the UAE. Like you have countries like that, usually smaller countries with a lot of money and a lot of control that decide to, okay, now we need to take that into our own hands. And of course, they first go towards the simplest solution, which is, okay, let's first make sure that people eat properly, which is also something that could be very useful in the US. And
you don't say.
No offense.
Hey, look, you're not. Look, I'll show you the commie flags hanging off camera. You can go ahead and dump on the U.S. all day.
Nothing we don't know.
So the classics like food and sleep and basic things basically and like activity and ways to monitor it and ways to control that a little bit. That definitely have impact on health, at least, So these are the things and so that's also the interesting part when you talk about the longevity industry. It's very, very broad and it means a lot of different things, right? So you get a part that is a lot of doctors, medical doctors, who go into this and call themselves either longevity doctors, that you have other term for it, or preventive medicine or things like that. And it's basically about this idea that rather than curing disease, we just try to make people as healthy as possible, as long as possible, so they don't get sick. And so usually the approach are things like that, like simple things to tweak people towards the right direction. And it's been shown to work super well. Like cardiovascular disease is very much linked to all of the things that I just mentioned. Cancer to some extent, even neurodegenerative disease have been shown that you can to some extent prevent or at least delay the apparition of neurodegenerative disease like Parkinson and Alzheimer just by eating well, exercising, and this kind of thing. So that's already that's one layer and one aspect of the longevity industry, which is pretty broad. And then you have the biotech. So you have biotech who wants to go for a more advanced solution, more complex options like stem cells, like gene therapy, like you got a bunch of these approaches that are super interesting. DNA methylation is also one of them that is very fashion right now.
Yeah.
And so all of that is more advanced, and of course we don't have access to it now, so we cannot see the benefits of that right now because it's still an ongoing project. So it's something that maybe in a few years will be available, first maybe to some people and then to a broader population. So these are like another aspect.
Yeah, you touched on something
now, though. Like we can get stem cells here, even in the States right now.
Yeah,
I think some stem cells.
Yeah,
not at the level. And Francois, I think you touched on a really interesting topic there, because you're talking about the tried and true, like eat right, move your body, modulate stress, sleep, do the things that keep a human up and functioning. And we've said it so many times on the show in various different forms. That's almost not the sexy part, if you will, right?
No.
You even mentioned the allure of all of these other things, like biotech, and as maybe as a species, we're a little we're lazy. We want the pill, we want the thing done to us, so we don't have to get on the treadmill, so we don't have to go and watch what we put in our body. And I think I'm very happy that you mentioned the foundation is what we put in our body, how we move our body, how we take care of ourselves. But I think just as everybody else, we're guys that want the sexy, sleek, modern stuff too.
There's also another aspect, is that with all this technology, with all this, let's say, basics, you can only go so far.
Yeah.
So you can go from, and they're so obvious. Like, okay, the another two examples that are obvious is alcohol and cigarettes, right? So you remove these two and you live already 10, 15 years longer or more. So that's proven, that's very clear, there's no question. But again, not sexy, definitely. But whatever you do, you can't go over 120. So that's also why it's two different, it's almost two separate topics. And there's actually, when you talk about people who label themselves to be inside longevity, there's almost two churches, right? You got the health span people and the lifespan people.
Yeah.
You've heard about it, I'm sure. And basically
we've had guests on the show on both camps. So
exactly. And honestly, I think it's the same. There's no huge difference between the two. It's just the health span people will be closer to what we just discussed. So the basics and things like that, because these one are known to have an aspect on health span. The lifespan people, they say, okay, that's great. Of course, I'm doing that. I'm not stupid, but that's not enough. Like, I don't want to live 120 years. I want to live, 1,000 years. And what do we have for that, right? So we're not there yet, obviously, but that's a completely different goal. And basically, you can't get to the moon just by making better and better planes, right? So that's you need something else entirely. You need
that's
different
a great
approach.
analogy, actually. Yeah.
Well, let's transition into some of this stuff, because I know I really want to hear your thoughts on stem cells and
we kind of opened that box.
Let's open up that little can of worms and talk the next level of stem cells, because I know that you've got a lot of interesting stuff going on with that. So
yes. So I have my own. I developed my own company, right, which is specialized in skin rejuvenation. And so it's not classical stem cell, it's focused on skin cells. So it's a specialized kind of stem cell, if we want. And the idea is basically with age, and that's true for pretty much all cells, you have what we call stem cell exhaustion. So you run out of some cell type. So in the case of the skin, one of the core skin cells called fibroblast. And these cells are producing every element of the skin. So it's producing collagen that you have heard about, hyaluronic acid, elastin, all these elements that gives the flexibility and the texture of the skin. And since we are losing the cells, which are the little factories that produce all of that, then it gets, we get less and less of it, and we get worse and worse skin. That's one way to look at it. So the simple way to look at it is like, okay, I will take a little piece of skin, extract the fibroblast, grow them, to have more of them, and ideally making them healthier and younger in the process, and then inject them back to replace the one that have been lost with age. So that's the general approach of what I'm offering, I would say. knowing that there's also regulation issue. It can be offered in some countries, not in others. Usually, any country where stem cells are okay to be used will be okay with this treatment. And so that's just for skin, right? So, but the idea is that you can apply the same process to other cell type. So stem cells that we hear about the most are mesenchymal stem cells, MSCs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so this one come from either bone marrow or fat, actually, most commonly. And fat is easier to reach. So, you take a little bit of fat on your belly and you take like about, 20, 30 centiliter of that. And then you extract the MSCs out of that. And these MSCs can also turn into bones or into other, so they are stem cells. They can turn into different cell type. And so that's the theory. And okay, so that's how it is. And with these stem cells, there's been already probably 20 years of research of what to do with them, right? So you don't necessarily want to inject them back to have more fat. That we usually don't run out of that. But you can want to, it works also for cartilage, for example, and like joints and things like that, right? So there've been quite a lot of research on trying to inject those stem cells in the joint of people with arthritis, for example. And so that's the principle is good, but then it's of course, biology being complex is sometimes a little bit more complicated than that. You will also have to take into account that someone with arthritis has high level of inflammation. And so when you inject these cells, in a non-ideal environment, right? So those cells, instead of recognizing that they should turn into this cell type, they will just recognize, oh, this is hell here, and maybe they will, they won't necessarily do the job as well, right? So
sure,
that's kind of the aspect. And also, depending if the stem cell is your own stem cell, like if you take it from your own fat, then that's it's called autologous cells, or if it comes from someone else. But if it comes from someone else, then your immune system will recognize it as foreign and most probably will kill it. So there's also like research being done on trying to remove the markers that will make these cells recognizable by the immune system. So I'm too quickly.
Why would you have to use somebody else's though? I mean, if you're alive,
it's much easier to produce.
Oh, I see.
It's much easier to mass produce. The problem of autologous approach, which is what I do with my technique, right? So it's slow and it's expensive. So it takes, for example, for our treatment, it takes 1 month between the moment we take the cells and the moment we inject them back, right? And within 1 month, you grow from a few hundred cells to a few millions, or let's say 60, 70 millions. So it's quite a lot. For the skin, it's fine. It's basically a 2D organ. So you just inject it everywhere. That's not too complicated. And it's very easy to reach, right? So that's not a problem. But it's autologous. So it means that, you cannot scale it. And for industry like
it's N of one,
pharma industry, if you can't scale it, there's no business behind it. So...
Well, there is for rich people who could afford to do it one-off. Sure,
exactly.
But I hear what you're saying. So can I ask a dumb question that I think a lot of people listening would probably be also curious about? Like, I think there's a maybe undefined line between, hey, I want to grow a new heart with my stem cells, and hey, I want to take my crow's feet off with my stem cells, right? Like these feel like dramatically different risk reward profiles. And yet you kept saying things about, legislation or regulation. Like, can you talk to me a little bit about why that is at even the level that you're dealing with? Because I would kind of think that what you're doing is pretty harmless, and like, why would there be regulation here?
Yeah. So it's a very good question. And that's why in some countries there is none. So the regulation around stem cell, everything that is medical for medical application usually have a higher level of regulation. Some countries, I mean, I come from EU, right? So in EU we have the highest level of regulation. So it's very difficult to do almost anything that is new. In EU we're blocked quite a lot. In US a little less, but you still have a high standard. And then you have other countries like Mexico where you can do much more things. And then you have countries where you can do almost anything because there is no regulation yet. So for the risk to answer really your question, the risk of letting everybody doing, for example, skin rejuvenation with fibroblast, is that if the rest of the country, if the rest of the system is not well regulated, then people will start doing it wrongly. So you need to grow the cells in specific condition. You don't want to have any contamination on the cells. You don't want them to catch any kind of bacteria in the process, right? You also don't want someone to mess up the cells with someone else's cells. It's not a big deal, honestly, because your immune system will kill them. But, it's not so great. Yeah. And it's just the standard should be high still. So you have to find a good balance between high standard, and it's doable because, that's what we do for pharma. But for sure, the higher the standard, the harder it is to provide, and the more expensive it becomes. Because, for example, to grow cells normally in a lab, it will cost maybe 200 euros. To grow them under GMP condition will cost 2,000 euros. Wow. Yeah. So that's a big difference, and it is what it is. It's just because the medium is controlled at every step, the machines is controlled, the air is controlled, everything is on a much higher level, and it has to be like that. But
and I'm down with all those things. Those all sound like
those seem like safety things. I think in the US we've really gotten this religious pushback, and I think that's where some of the insanity starts to happen.
Yeah, I mean, and it's we don't need to dive into this, but just to illustrate Tom's point, the Surgeon General of the state of Florida actually used the words, "This is an immoral intrusion." So as soon as you're using the word immoral in a medical context, I'm like, we've sort of crossed the church brain barrier here.
Yeah.
We're not, this isn't a science conversation anymore, right? This is something else.
Especially when we're talking about, as you said, fat cells, bone marrow, we're not talking about aborted fetuses, and even baby teeth. And all these other sources of stem cells, and we're acting like we're killing babies to extract stem cells.
But I think you're basically underlying the right point. It's a problem of generalization. So stem cells is a general term, or cells in general, and so something can be forbidden for a specific reason that doesn't apply to the rest. So you're exactly on point here. Because stem cells, you do have what we call embryonic stem cells, which can come from sometime from actual embryo. But I mean, nobody go to take a healthy embryo and steal their cells for fun, right? That's not how it works.
Right.
So that's one type of cells, and then you have people taking it from placenta. So in theory, you're not hurting anybody. The placenta comes out anyway. You can have you have other type of stem cells depending on different part of the body as well, and so it's a complex issue, and each stem cells have different value and have different purpose, and so it's difficult to there should be a regulation that depends on the cell type and on the application, which is the case in other countries. For example, in the UAE, because I'm trying to develop the business in the UAE right now. They are doing exactly that. So they have regulation for per cell type and per application. So depending what you want to do, and then this is either allowed or not. There's not a general, no, we don't do that.
Right.
So that's a different approach, I would say.
And I think a lot of this must be tied up in unpacked assumptions from earlier generations of this science, because I know at one point, the only way to get it, I mean, look, I have a 17-year-old kid. When he was born 17 years ago, they're like, you've got to hold on to
we
these
banked
stem
ours
cells.
too.
You know, and it was basically like, this is the only way it's ever going to happen. And at the time, it was probably more true than not. I don't know that it was 100% true even then, but it felt very true at the time. Let's put
Oh God, you should have seen when I tried to dispose of my kids. I was like, look, she's 12 now. Do we even know if they're viable?
We're going to clarify that statement, Tom. You just said you were going to dispose of your kids.
Look, man, times are tough. We all have to make sacrifices. No, but my kid's stem cell, her cord blood, I said, look, it's been sitting on ice for 12 years.
Yeah.
But the technology's gotten better. There's been no research on how long these are viable for, and I'm literally just giving you a few $100s a year to run a freezer.
Yeah.
And then they said,
I will tell you my opinion on this business,
Please.
to be honest, and I might not make friends there, but it's okay. I think that especially back then, it didn't make much sense to keep these stem cells and to expect for some, because especially back then, we had no idea what to do with them.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just a business. And that's also the interesting part. In US, you're perfectly allowed to have that business. So storing stem cells is no problem. There's several companies doing that, but using them, that's a problem. You don't have actually.
That's
so
a
it
weird
doesn't make any sense,
juxtaposition,
right?
isn't it? Yeah.
It's just absurd in itself. And you have actually some very similar thing happening with cryogeny. Like people getting frozen with the hope that one day they can be unfrozen and back to life. It's complete nonsense at this current stage. And I like the idea in general, but the company, I'm not going to make friends, but it's okay. The company who did that until now, they are not only they are not able to do, but most probably the fact that they froze them in the wrong condition
it's going to destroy all the cells.
There's nothing else that can ever be done with them, because freezing wrongly is worse than not freezing at all. I mean, it's the same, because you're basically destroying every cells, and then what can you possibly do? So
there was an article on that a couple of years ago, Tom. You remember? They're like, and when they finally thaw out Disney based on how he did
didn't we call an episode Disney's Frozen Head?
Yeah. We did an episode on that a couple of years ago. Yeah, it was. But they're like, as soon as it thaws out, it's going to be mush.
Yeah. There's a lot of research. That's exactly the case. It's going to be pure, mush. But there's research on it now, and the reason why the research is so intense, because there's actual application, and basically we cannot freeze a person now because we cannot freeze an organ now.
Yeah,
which is small. Right, we are looking for that, because freezing organs properly, cleanly, what we can freeze right now are cells. That's no problem. Now we can freeze cells. I do it every day in my lab, right? So it's a scale issue. And if you could freeze a heart, for example, that would already be great for all the heart transplant surgery that are needed. So the application would be there. Then of course, on a longer scale, the idea of freezing also have application for space travel and things like that. More than medical application, I would say. But I understand the purpose. I know there's active research, so I'm not looking down on the people doing research on that. I think this is very interesting, and I know some that are doing great things. But this is completely different from companies selling service that they cannot provide.
And that's the part we were talking about earlier in this call, right? Like, is when you get these commercialization issues going on where they're like, great, I could make a ton of money freezing Disney's head. Cool. But
literally cool.
Yeah. But there's this whole other piece where that's fucking useless. And I mean, so then you start getting people who are naysayers or skeptics, rightfully so in this example, saying, is this fucking ethical? Like it's not going to work. Like there's not like a viable outcome here. Like, so why are we allowing this to happen?
Yeah. And we have the same issue in longevity industry because, and there's, and that's why also the gap between the doctors usually who are trying their best to be the best example, actually most of them at least, versus some people with lower moral, I would say, who just find or simply who choose on purpose not to know too much, who will sell things and convince themselves it's good.
Plausible deniability.
I don't necessarily blame them saying that, but it's actually.
So speaking of that, what can you run us through your thoughts on the whole prescription class of metformin, rapamycin, resveratrol? Like, can you give us your breakdown of that as well? Because that's speaking of people who just don't understand anything and just sell stuff.
No. And that's like, so there's two categories. You have the drugs, repurposed drugs, metformin and rapamycin are drugs. And you have the supplements, right? So I know both worlds. I would say I know supplement a little bit better because I'm in that business as well, and I understand it also. But basically, when it comes to drugs, interestingly, we have things that are pretty solid. So metformin and rapamycin have, at least scientifically, very good data for a long time. So we know that, first, we know what they were doing originally. They went through clinical trials, so we know exactly how safe and unsafe they are. We know their side effects and everything. So I would say those ones, and also the I forgot the name of that drug that is so popular right now to make you slimmer.
GLP-1s.
Semaglutide, GLP-1s.
Right. And this one seems to also potentially be one of the one that might be repurposed in longevity drugs at some point. So those are interesting, and they are trying. So they also like active research by top scientists to either modify these molecules a little bit, so to low down their side effects. I'm thinking about rapamycin especially, because rapamycin first purpose is to switch off your immune system. It's a drug that was used for transplant.
Yeah.
So when you get someone else's organ, you don't want your immune system to kill it or else you die. But overall, you do like to have your immune system to work. So that's why rapamycin is super interesting. But they are looking at what they call rapalogs, so analogs of rapamycin to kind of get the benefits without getting the side effects. So that's one of them. Then you have all the supplements, and then does
NAD and NAD plus and all that fall into the supplement category, I would imagine?
Yes. NAD plus precursors usually. So NMN and others similar molecules. These one are they are based. So the original science is solid. So it's based on like publication from famous scientists in specific field, looking in specific models. Either mice or Drosophila or God knows what, and they did see something there. For example, the decrease of NAD plus with age, that's something that has been measured, and that under certain condition you can boost that and see benefits. How does it help humans? That's still not very clear. There's not, to my knowledge, very, very clear evidence that taking those supplements have health benefits. So this is actually where where we need clinical trials to basically show, and that's the point. We are not mice, and we have like a lot of things that make us different. And one of the things that is interesting between mice and humans, I'm talking as biologists, right? Because for you maybe it's obvious. For me, we're both mammals. The organs are very similar. Yeah. We're not that far away. But basically, one thing that really set us apart is the lifespan, actually. So if you trace the distribution of lifespans of mammals, we're among the longest living mammals, even if you normalize by the weight, right? So there's normally a correlation. The bigger the animal, the longer they live. But the mice are extremely short-lived, right? So 2-3 years, it's short. So it means that part of their aging is specific to their biology, because they have super fast metabolism, because this, because that. They are not predators. They also haven't been selected to live longer. There's all kind of discussion about the evolution behind it as well. But as a matter of fact, even so, they are mammals, so they do have a lot of things in common with us. Something might work with them because they're basically already very much on the left side of that distribution, which won't work with us because we are already much more optimized in that sense.
That's amazing. We just had we just had the author of the study that showed that psilocybin would increase lifespan in mice by 30%, and she even mentioned that, like, one of the things was that they're giving them these hero doses because their metabolism is 4 times stronger. So something, if you scale that up to a human size, we might be high for weeks.
Right.
And she's like, they just kind of look off into the corner and then go to take a nap. It's a very weird thing, and thank you for bringing that up, because I think a lot of people in the biohacking community get very excited when they see either a cellular study or a small mammal study, right? And then immediately they're throwing their hat. I mean, I joked with Dave a couple of times about, like, can I get that myostatin inhibitor? Like, where can I get that? And we have no idea what it does to humans, but sure, you can find it.
And that same study, by the way, actually increased skin cells by 50%. So now they're trying to get human trials there. And you were talking about skin. I almost brought her up actually earlier when Francois was talking about skin.
Yeah. Someone sent me the study actually. When a friend of mine hear about something related to skin, they will send me the study.
Yeah.
Fascinating study, but but the mouse thing is interesting. I never even thought about it through that lens before. That's actually pretty clarifying overall.
Yeah. But the problem of that molecule specifically is that it has such strong effect on the brain.
Yeah.
So you would have to modify it so it loses that effect, because I don't think the two are linked, right? So whatever effect it has on the brain,
the psychoactive.
That's.
I think there might be companies working on that too.
Yeah.
Well, we know.
But it's far away from being an available drug for this purpose, because then you have quite many years before you reach that stage.
Well, when you say available, I mean, going to our grocery
yes,
store.
I mean
picking up. That's one thing.
This is not. It's not going to be at the pharmacy.
Right.
I mean, it is. It is available, but it's.
We joked about Sinclair's research in the same way. We're like, man, he looks.
Yeah, we're
great.
like, he's doing some stuff. He's not. That's not on the shelf.
No,
yeah,
you can't get that. You can't get that stuff.
To be honest, we all like. I was the first to test all of the things that I ever created. It's normal, but I still waited until I was sure it was safe, at least.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, sure enough.
Sure enough.
But, because that makes sense, but
I didn't realize this, but it found out in a trivia contest recently that Madame Curie's coffin was lined with lead, and her notebooks still actually radiate. And I'm like, wow, so that sucks. She was really smart, did not see this one coming, and fuck, damn it.
But I love that. Some of the most intelligent people have had some of the craziest deaths because they're like, let's just see what happens.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So outside of I guess how do these things all weave together in your mind? Because I think you are painting a pretty clear picture of the whole ecosystem, right? You got rapamycin over here, you've got NAD stuff over here, you've got stem cell skin stuff over here. How do you sort of see this all folding together? I mean, is there a fold? Is there not? I mean,
well, yes. What I do like to see now, and there's more and more of such places, are longevity institute, which combine medical practices, medical research, clinical trials, and research labs. So it's all in one. And there's some in Singapore, there's some in Shanghai, there's one just opened not so long ago in the UAE. I'm sure in US there must be something equivalent as well. And basically, having all together kind of help, because I don't think that there will be this silver bullet that everybody talks about. There's never going to be one solution.
The show's over. Put a packet up. No silver bullet.
Yeah.
Aging is incredibly complex, and basically, the more you look at aging, it's basically as complex as biology itself. Every part of biological system can age, so this can have it's layers of complexity on top of each other, and then if anything age in that system, it will have influence on the rest, right? So you cannot just set the complexity apart and just focus on one aspect. You can do it when you do the research because you don't really have a choice. But once you are looking at solution, then you have to understand that, okay, maybe that molecule does that, but how does it pan out in an organism that has many other problems at the same time, right? So the approach will be a multi-layered approach. And so that's why I'm actually trying my best to always keep on knowing everything that is happening. And it will be a bit of everything. So, okay, set apart all the classic healthy things that you should do anyway. Then, in terms of supplements, the main problem is that they tend to disintegrate when you eat them. So just taking supplement doesn't necessarily pan out the way that you expect based on what is known on the molecule. We talked about NAD, that's one, but you have, for example, senolytics, that's a molecule that kills senescent cells specifically. If you inject them and if you eat them, that's not the same thing, right? So there's all this aspect, but senescence of cells is something that is only, it's known for a while, but how it impacts aging, that's only known for maybe 10 years, 10, 15 years max. So there's also all these new things that come that we realize, oh, actually, this is crucial for aging. And that was completely neglected until now. The methylation is also an example.
Yeah.
Until recently, we had no idea why would that have such a huge impact on aging. And this notion of, biological clock, which was already actually popularized by telomeres, which you don't hear about anymore. And so that's also,
you obviously haven't been reading Brian Johnson. He talks about fucking telomeres all the time. Yeah, like.
Well, let's not talk about that.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. We don't have to dive down if we don't want to, but like he has taken a sharp left turn into the don't die. Like you don't have to die. Like his language has changed sharply in the last 6 months.
He's really got commercialized.
Which is interesting because usually people tend to, put water in their wine, like we say, so dilute their message a little bit. You see, if you take Aubrey de Grey, for example, he started with Don't Die. Yeah. And then he realized that, okay, a lot of people just can't handle this message. So we're talking about health span, we're talking about prolonging life and things like that. The point is that Brian Johnson is not a scientist, and that's very in everything he says, it's very obvious that he's not a scientist.
No, of course, yeah. Well, I don't think he's even pretending to be a scientist, though.
No, of course,
it's not.
But like he's doing it with the best intentions. Initially, he's doing it with the best intentions, and then he's a business person through and through, and as the adaptation curve, like we were talking about kind of these curves, right? That's the way my brain thinks as percentages is as the business starts to take off, he's going to do that market research. He's going to do what the popular statements are and do market research and then just pound into it. And but honestly, that's fine. What bothers me really is more the fact that like what he's talking about in terms of what should be done. He does have a message that this is what you should do to live forever or whatever. That's absolutely not backed by science at all. And so he shouldn't say it. Or at least he shouldn't say it like that as a scientist. I'm talking as a scientist. And so taking 100 supplements for a lot of people, that sounds just insane because it is. Like it sounds like you're going to ruin your liver and your kidney long before anything else. Yeah. And you might have a better, I don't know. You might run faster for a little while, but you're still gonna die. So it's different, just killing yourself differently. But you need to have backed information. And the problem is that scientific approach, and that kind of go in opposition to what I just said earlier about we need several approach in parallel. Science function on one by one. So, and it's just because that's when you try two things at the same time that they multiply the complexity, and 3 and 4 and 10 you soon are not able to follow, basically scientifically, to follow the effect of everything combined. And so that is a problem, and that is the limitation of science. And what he's doing is just, well, let's do all of it together and we'll see. Like, you will see nothing because you have no idea what did what exactly. So
it's funny. AI's got something called context rot, which is kind of similar to this, right? Like you can start a thread, and if you're unilateral in your prompt, it's pretty clear. But as you start getting more information, and that the answer starts to bifurcate and kind of vein out, the context of your original question starts to disintegrate with the more options. So just today or yesterday, actually, they came out with the ability to fork a prompt now. So to cure this problem, specifically to cure this problem, right? Because even inside the confines of something like AI, they realize that as soon as you start adding N of 2, you've all of a sudden like thrown the entire yardstick off. Like it doesn't know how to it gets infinitely less effective as you continue to spider out. So it's just fascinating that there's a correlation there. I
mean, it's a problem that's true everywhere, I guess. I mean, the more complex you get, the harder it is to predict whatever is going to come out of it. So that's almost common sense.
Your skin thing, right? Like that seems primarily cosmetic, correct? It's not like a.
For now, yes. But the point is, It is mostly. I have to say that was the first goal, I would say, and it's based on science that existed before I started it. So I already knew that how well it worked with the original version, just improved it, and I'm still working on improving it further. The goal is aesthetic, but also skin health. So
That's
when
what I
you
was going to ask.
rejuvenate,
Is where does that bridge in? You beat me to the question.
Absolutely, because the huge difference between this and Botox, for example, and Botox is the best example I can give because Botox is a toxin. It's written in the name, so you can't really miss it, right? So Botox, and that's exactly what it means. So this is it's temporary and it's purely aesthetic. So the Botox, just you inject it, it works, it's magic for 6 months, then you have to do it again. Your skin haven't get any younger in the process. It might have been even a little bit older for dealing with the toxin, right? So it absolutely doesn't touch anything about the biology positively. What I'm doing for that matter is the opposite, right? So I'm looking at the biology. When you do the injection of your own cells, basically you see nothing at the beginning. It takes 3 to 6 months for the cells to rebuild the skin, because that's basically what's happening, right? You're injecting the cells start producing collagen and elastin and hyaluronic acid and many other things. They're starting also to make the skin environment healthier. So like inflammation will go down and this kind of thing, right? So you're talking about actual organ rejuvenation, and that's completely different, right? So also it lasts much, much, much longer. We're talking about years, because if you manage to...
how long does your skin thing last?
So, I mean, right now we have data up to 5 years, and it worked up to 5 years.
Okay.
But the logic is, if you manage to rejuvenate the skin by 10 years, based on different criteria that can be estimated, right? Then it should last for 10 years. I mean, you literally...
I see. To put you back to where you started today. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. So that's the idea. And
do you have a gas pedal on how far back you wind the clock? Is it kind of that precise or not really?
Not at all. So the one of the main limitation, and I'll be completely blank honest with you guys, the main limitation of such approach is that it's very biological, right? We are injecting cells into skin. So it cannot be more biological than that. There's nothing else. It's your own cells, so there's no risk. But there's variation. So first, the cells differ from people to people, and the environment itself, the skin, is different from people to people. So depending on, and not necessarily just the age, the best result we got so far was on a 70-year-old woman. So it's not necessarily younger will get better results, which could make sense that you get younger skin, but okay, it's also less easy to see on a younger person because they have less damage to reverse, right? But we've seen variability, right? We almost always see results, but it varies. It varies, and it varies also in the place where it's injected. I keep showing my face because usually the face. Sometimes it's the neck, sometimes it's the different places, and some people sometimes see results in one area and not the rest. We don't know why. So there is the problem of biology is incredibly complex. So the more I dig into it, the more I try to understand the biology of skin, which is actually pretty complicated because I'm talking about one cell type right now, but just the fibroblast, there's already 10 subtypes just in the skin that have been shown.
My mind wanders into like genetics and heritage, where like there's certain populations that their skin ages faster, and you're just replicating their own skin. So like it's you're just replicating the genetics that already made them have bad skin. So how are you like approaching that type of stuff?
Yeah, so we are not at the stage where we're going to modify genetically the cells before injecting them. It sounds fun.
But you will.
But...
Well, it does seem like pushing it backwards a little bit, because I was going to ask you a very similar thing, which was like, if we're talking about these fibroblasts, are they less active, much like stem cells themselves, in older patients versus younger patients?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And weirdly enough, not so much. So
that's great.
Yeah, and there's a reason for that. Basically, to understand that, you have to understand the concept of diversity within cells. So when you have cells in a environment, let's say an organ, for example, skin, you always have high level of diversity. So you have, for example, senescent cells exist in all skin, from baby to old people. Just the proportion of senescent cells not the same. You get just more and more as you grow older. That's the same thing for young and healthy cells. You always have some left, right? And when you start taking this piece of skin, very small, 3 millimeter, and we extract the cells and we grow them in culture, only the very healthy one will divide, basically.
Okay. So it's already self-screening then.
That's one way of selection. We can also add another layer to basically, we can use ways to select specifically for the healthiest. So there's, because of that,
you can add something that just kills the weak stuff off.
Absolutely. So your skin, your cells have their own population of young and old inside of yourself, no matter your age. Of course, the older you get, the harder it gets to find those cells. So there were studies, for example, on centenarians. It's a French guy who did that. And he basically was working with iPSCs. I don't know if you're familiar with iPSC. It's basically turning fibroblasts into real stem cells. So it's induced pluripotent stem cells. And almost always we use fibroblasts for that. It's the best cell type to be able to do that. And with this iPSC, you can turn them into anything at all. You can turn them into neurons, you can turn them into liver cells, whatever you want. There's a Japanese scientist who got Nobel Prize for that, right? So this is well known. But normally it's done on cells that are from young people, that's, because you're only interested in the iPSC themselves. And that French scientist, he basically looked into how far can you get, in terms of age of people and source of fibroblasts to get iPSCs. And he managed to get iPSCs from centenarians. Wow. So basically he told me, I had a conversation with him, and he told me that basically it's the same thing that I just explained you. The success rate decreases with age because the population of super healthy cells decreases with age, but that doesn't mean that there's no more.
That is fascinating. And I guess, we're talking about skin, but I mean, does a similar mechanism of action exist in things like all the non-organ complex things, like, I don't know, hair, like I've got a whole head of gray hair, right? Like that's one people would want, like muscle tone as you get old, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, I guess muscle is a little bit more complex as well. So that might fall closer to organs.
No, I wouldn't say that. Actually, hair are more complex than muscles.
Oh, really?
Because, no, hair are incredibly complicated because they are made of like 3 or 4 different cell types. They are ingrained in different layers because it's not the hair part that matters. The part
it's the follicle.
Exactly, the follicle. And so this is actually not so trivial. Muscles, on the other hand, is mostly muscle cells. So they're huge. They tend to have few cells, but they also have stem cells that constantly exist. They are not that complicated of an organ compared to others. Yeah, weirdly enough.
Well, I guess my question was, could you roll this out into other things like muscles apparently?
Yes. Yes. So muscles, you would have to look at this myoblast. I mean the stem myoblast cells, the stem cells of muscle cells.
Sure.
Because the muscle cells themselves are fused cells, so you cannot do anything with them. So instead of one, you get like giant cells that have multiple nucleus. So this is useless. You can't put them in culture. They don't divide actually. And so you only that's actually an interesting aspect.
I've never heard
very
that
quickly, but basically you cannot get muscle cancer. It's not possible because the muscle don't divide. And you cannot have neuron cancer because neurons don't divide either. So those cells don't age the same way as the cell that divide. You have the cell that divide can have mutation because mutation occurs during division.
Sure.
But the cells that don't divide, like neurons and muscle cells, they cannot accumulate mutation because they don't divide. They just stay there. So, but what they do accumulate is, since they don't divide, they have to live for a very long time. And they have to get rid of all the trash. So that's why, for example, neurons tends to get neurodegenerative disease, which are always accumulation of bad proteins. So different neurons, different proteins, but their problem is get rid of the trash. For cells like fibroblasts, get rid of the trash, not so much a big problem because each time you divide the trash by 2. So you dilute the trash, actually.
I see.
And, that's another way to look at, at how
That's a really good way to look at
complicated
it.
But is that
biology
trash? Is that trash collection thing sort of the idea behind any of the senolytic supplements that are out there right now, like to try to like?
That's a different kind of trash, but yeah, no, it's more about
trash, okay.
everything related to autophagy.
Mm.
So
Oh, okay, got
autophagy are like the trash eater and the trash, the recycling mechanism of the cells, right? So we're talking about rapamycin. Earlier, rapamycin is also an autophagy inducer. And you have like other molecules like that are known to induce rapamycin, induce autophagy, sorry. And so these ones are meant particularly for getting rid of the accumulated of problems. So it can be trash in the form of protein aggregates.
Oh.
It can be trash in the form of unfunctional mitochondria. So it's called mitophagy instead of autophagy, but that's the same process more or less. And it's about destroying specifically the things that are, bad and just getting rid of them. So that's also the way to rejuvenate cells, basically.
And senolytics would be what? The whole cell, the senescent cell itself?
You kill the cells so senescent cells are cells that just sit there and don't want to die. So they are old, they don't divide anymore. Their telomeres usually have reached the point of not being able to divide, so they are not able to divide, but rather than just dying politely, they just stay there and they contaminate the environment.
Yeah. Okay. You're just taking
Francois,
up space, bro. Yeah.
The more you've been talking and kind of steering back to this whole, I think you starting with the fibroblasts in skin is amazing. Not because like maybe this was an area, but also you're dealing with cosmetics. And if you want to start studying other tissue, other organs, you're going to need capital. And where you're going to get that money, cosmetics is probably the right way to go.
Yeah, that's why I went that way.
Yeah, sure.
I mean,
like, I'm not
I
stupid.
also have a history with this world. I worked for cosmetic industry for 10 years, and I had plenty of freedom to do all the research I wanted. So I was not really doing cosmetic research, but I knew this world and I know skin thanks to that, basically.
Yeah.
So and you are right in term of that was the idea. I started for the story when I used to be a scientist, right? I'm still a scientist, I hope. But I became entrepreneur in 2020 and I started 4 companies at the same time, which is stupid, but whatever.
That sounds like an entrepreneur, though.
Yeah. I'm waiting for the punchline here, Francois. It feels very normal to me.
All good. So basically, the idea was that I'm going to start 2 companies that can make money. So one that is related to skin, one that is related to supplement, and that I'm going to make 2 others that can more focus. So basically biotech companies that will focus on disease. So my interest was Parkinson, and these 2 biotechs never went anywhere because raising money was too complicated and it took time even to start growing this. So I was too optimistic. But okay, still the companies 3 out of 4 are still alive now. So it's not too
3
bad.
out of 4 ain't bad.
That's pretty damn good.
Yeah.
You should have called that 4th one the senescent company.
Yeah, the 4th. That's hilarious.
That is true. I at least I knew where to kill it before it stopped poisoning the rest.
Yeah, totally. So like regulation, real quick, I just want to make sure we understand because I think the regulation part is the most complicated. The science is complicated, obviously, but I'm saying for everyone else, the regulation part of it is probably the most daunting because I think we're inventing new words here. Like these things have never happened before. Like we don't really know how to do that. I don't know how I don't envy the people in charge of making these regulations, right? Like it seems like such a complicated thing. How long of a time frame do you see this? I mean, rub your crystal ball here a little bit. Like, I mean, is this like a 1 to 5 year thing? We'll figure this out. Or do you think we're like decades off from kind of getting our shit together here?
It depends what you mean by figure this out. You mean the regulation part or
like
the aging
how do we get this into, I mean, and okay, so good point. By that, I mean, regulation, we've cleared enough regulatory hurdles where we can get some level of public distribution for these technologies, therapies, etc.
It's a little bit out of my field, I have to say. So, and
Got
it's
it.
really it's country dependent. It's country dependent. So you, in your head, probably you're thinking about the US.
No, I'm
I have
thinking
no
about I
idea.
can get on a plane to anywhere, Francois.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that is the right answer. Basically,
Yeah.
the way that I look at it, and is that yes, there is a place where it can be done, where things can be done, where other country it cannot. And it doesn't mean those countries are doing complete nonsense or complete lack of regulation, right? So it's about finding countries where they did regulation, but they did it properly. And they did it with the idea of going further in. So, for example, Japan, weirdly enough, because Japan is also a very regulated country, but because a lot of stem cell research came from there originally, they had this national pride, and so they allow for much more in that field than many other rich countries. So, because of that, then there are things that can potentially happen there, and so you got like so several countries like that will push, but it's on the country basis. Then you have, that's a different question, but the gray zone area. So basically things where it can be done as long as you don't talk about it too loudly, and that is almost everywhere. And so there are things that I actually recently heard that even in US you can do stem cells as long as the doctor, I mean, there's like a whole system in which you can go around and potentially, like, the doctor have the responsibility to do some things. It depends, like there's loophole in the system.
Yeah.
And there's how the law is.
For a while, what people were doing was, I'll sell you the syringes filled with the medication, but you have to inject it yourself. And I'll just be standing next to you, but you have
loophole.
to.
Yeah.
And I'm such a wimp about that. I'd be like, well, I guess my skin's dying. I'm not. And
I'm looking off to the right of the box of syringes I have on the floor and a bunch of supplements.
Yeah,
I'm 100%. I'm actually injecting myself, but only with tiny syringes.
Insulin syringes,
I don't
right?
like syringes either, but
I'm like, even the blood test for what was that food sensitivity test? They're like, take this thing and click
one
the
drop,
button, and it's gonna jab you in the finger. I'm like, are these people fucking crazy? I'm not doing that. I'm like, no, that's nuts.
100% with you here.
Yeah. So I finally got it to work, but I felt like it was like a marathon. I got done with it. I'm like sweating. I'm like, oh my God, it was exhausting.
I've been brutalized.
Yeah, totally. Unbelievable. So Francois, what's next with you then? Like, it seems like you're tiptoeing through the lilies here with this situation. Like, do you have like a roadmap of where you're going here, or are you just kind of building the plane as you take off?
A little bit. Yeah, I'm very interested in the Middle East and in the UAE. There is potential for me to develop my business there as well. So maybe that will be the next step for me. We will see, but there's option, and I'm working on it. So business-wise, it makes a lot of sense because both, I mean, several of my interests can be developed there, and where I am in Europe now, and Croatia, just only advantage is lack of application of the rules or lack of regulation. So it's more gray zone than regulated in the right way, and I'm not very comfortable with that. So I cannot really develop what I want to develop properly. But it was never meant to be like that anyway. Croatia was mostly for the R&D. To create something and to develop something, but now business-wise,
production's got to go.
Yeah, exactly. So that there's that, but there's also the need for me to do something very useful. So I was considering the possibility of creating my own clinic, creating even potentially my own institute. That's something that's been behind my head for a long time. But that's not easy to do. That's very much time consuming, especially because I'm doing many things already. And so the possibility to work with some of these like big institute that have already the capital, that already have the equipment, and that that I can work with together to develop solutions, that might also be like the next step for me. That would make sense, I would say.
Sure. Those countries you mentioned are all loaded. Like UAE has got tons and tons and tons of money.
Mm-hmm.
Those places are not broke.
That helps. Yeah. Some money. Yeah. And they control money in a different way than in the US. They have control over the country themselves, and they will inject the petrol money into other industry. So if they decide that the health of the country is a top priority, they will take this petrol money and inject it massively into trying to develop this solution on many levels. So that's something that makes sense. Singapore is in the same situation, basically. Different money.
You at the beginning of the call, you actually mentioned something about like them recognizing the cost at a society level to an aging or sickly population. I had always taken a different sort of approach to that and said, like, it's just rich people wanting to not die, right? Like, and there's
but it's everybody.
Yeah. Right. No, I didn't think that. I didn't think of it that way. I'm like, oh yeah, of course it makes sense. You know, anywhere you go where there's a lot of rich people.
For a country, it's absolutely. I mean, if we have to go back talking about US, it would be in the best interest of the US to just make people healthier. There's no question.
I've often argued that socialized medicine is secretly kind of selfish because I don't want to be around other sick people.
Yeah.
That's
you know, like if other people are healthy, I'm healthier.
Yeah. But there's that, but there's also the fact that sick people cost a lot of money.
A lot of money.
And they are not, that's just extra burden on the society. There have been calculation of how much it costs, like each year of aging, how much it's billions that at a country level, it's unimaginable. So if you have, if you are in a situation where basically people are even 5 years healthier, like you just postpone of 5 years of their general, decrease of health span. That's there's no equivalent of making more money than that, basically.
Right.
No petrol can reach that level of
you instantly start way in the black, right? You're like, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, Francois, man, I think we could probably explore about 80 other options with you, but I think we have to cut it off somewhere, right? I mean, we got to turn the switch off at some point. It was very fascinating. I mean, listen, it's, I don't want to say it's rare, but it is increasingly difficult to find things that like kind of stump us at a bunch of different levels. And today was that for me for sure. There was a lot of new information coming out of you. So I love that. Thank you.
My pleasure.
So where do we send people? Are you in a public space where you're looking for attention? Are you, can we send people to a website?
Yeah, I'll give you, I mean, I have a LinkedIn profile that people can reach to, because I do most of my business. I try to do B2B rather than B2C.
Yeah, got it.
Because it's easier to deal with professionals than with people.
Yeah, so, for sure.
Even my skin business, it's a lab to clinics. My clients are clinics, so I don't.
Yeah, got it.
I don't deal with the injection and stuff like that. This is, So this is the visibility for me is there. So I do have a website for this, for example, and I'll give you a few others of the link that awesome. Correspond to what I do, basically. If people are curious.
Perfect. We'll put all that in the show notes and everything.
So skin clinics, aesthetic clinics, med spas, all of those types of people can reach out to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, cool.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, Francois, thank you, man. This has been awesome. Anyone else have anything to say to Francois?
Yeah, no, man. I love what you're doing, and I think you're taking that first steps on a long path that can lead to advancements in every other organ. So it's really exciting.
I can't wait to look back on these episodes like 20 years from now and find out how much of this shit actually.
We told you. We told you.
I'm like, it's going to be funny. Cool, man. Yeah. All right, guys. Take care. Enjoy.
Real pleasure. See you guys.
Be subversive, irreverent.
Health is wealth, but you knew that.
Everybody knows that.
But so is following us on social media at Irreverent Health. And check out our website for more exclusive content at irreverenthealth.com.
Oh, I like this.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Irreverent Health.